If you're South Asian, you've got belly fat and you've got low energy and you suspect that you've got insulin resistance, I'm going to fix that today, only using 3 rules to solve it. So this is your pancreas, but the yellow ones are carbohydrates and the red ones are insulin. Now to be able to put these carbohydrates inside this muscle here, you need insulin. You need a binding agent that comes with them and goes into the cell. Now that's what a normal person's would look like, and the problem with insulin resistance is that what happens is that these carbohydrates get through your bloodstream into the part where the muscle is here, and they find it very, very difficult to go through the barrier to the muscles, and what happens is more insulin is needed, so normal levels of insulin, it's normally that a level can push them through. However, because these cells are resistant because of insulin resistance, being South Asian, having belly fat, the foods that you eat, the health that you have, it actually needs a lot more insulin to be produced by the pancreas to actually push this through. Now the problem with this is that insulin being secreted doesn't mean it's a good thing. More work by the pancreas is not a great idea. You want the pancreas working as little as possible, secreting the right amount of insulin to help the carbohydrates go into the cell itself. Because now these cells are not receptive to being pushed through, they're very resistant, they're pushing against it, then these carbohydrates or glucose or sugars end up sitting and working and staying in your bloodstream despite the insulin. So that might push through that amount, and then it'll have to produce more insulin to get some of these. But because these cells are resistant, it doesn't actually get all of them, which means there's a rise in blood sugar levels, so increased blood sugar, which then leads to all of the metabolic issues that could potentially come with higher blood sugar levels, type 2 diabetes. Your energy is going to be lower, your mood is going to be lower, and overall your health is going to take a hit. And there's a few causes of that. Not only is it looking at the insulin levels, but also completely depends on the food that's going in. There is a large amount of insulin that's needed to be created, or a large amount of calories and glucose that is needing to be put somewhere. And just simply, if you don't have enough cells and you don't have enough places to put it, they're just going to sit inside of your blood vessels and your blood sugar levels, which is then going to lead to that low energy, that low mood, and that low health. So having a large amount of calories can contribute to having high levels of insulin resistance, but also high levels of blood sugar. So today I'm going to focus on the 3 things that effectively open up this factor here. We're going to try and get these cells more receptive. So instead of it looking like small holes here for them to fit through, we're going to crack this bitch wide open and have a lot more areas for this to be receptive, so that when the carbohydrates do come through, they have a lot of more places to go inside the muscle tissue, which is super easy to change, and these 3 rules are going to do that. So rule number 1 is 7 to 8 hours of sleep and 7,000 to 8,000 steps at a minimum. Even getting 1 poor night of sleep can actually decrease your insulin sensitivity by 30%, which means that it's going to work harder, more insulin, more blood sugar levels than the usual levels that you can have when you're eating the same amount of foods, leading to low energy, more fatigue, and then making the body work harder just by having some sleep deprivation. Now, from a steps perspective, getting 7 to 8,000, actually what we have here is makes these cells more receptive because you're utilizing your muscles. The more you work this area, the more it's more open to allowing more cells into the area because it has a demand. Because of that, when you walk and you do your exercise and you're walking around, you're burning calories, you are then navigating and stabilizing the blood sugar because it's taking a need. So the muscle is like, give me some shit to focus on because I need some fuel. So it goes, okay, well, let's open up the floodgates here of where we get our source of energy from and let the carbohydrates come in to fuel the muscles as we do our walking. So with the sleep, it increases the insensitivity, but also a lack of sleep decreases the sensitivity and it makes it harder for these babies to get into the cell. But then with the steps, you're actually creating a demand on the other side. So instead of it being pushed against a wall that doesn't want the thing, there's actually more a demand inside the cell. So it's easier to then go in the cell. So I'll give you an example of what insulin resistance looks like versus insulin sensitivity. Insulin resistance looks like the Louis Vuitton store where there's a queue outside and people are waiting to get in just so that they can go and have a look at the bags. Insulin sensitivity, when you are actually moving and doing your steps and getting your sleep, it's like a sale on the inside of a shop without there being a security guard. It's New Year's Eve day sale. Rule number 2, have protein and carbs in the same meal. Don't just have carbohydrates and sugars on their own. Protein plus carbohydrate meals. If you're just having a carbohydrate meal, what that would do is spike insulin really aggressively, which means that there is a large dump of insulin, so a large dump of insulin being secreted into the blood vessels and the blood itself. And therefore, there is a spike of lots of insulin, which then reduces energy levels, fatigue, mood. However, when you have protein included in that meal, it slows down the digestion of that meal. So then the spike is reduced, which means that there is a fewer amount of insulin cells needed or secreted over a longer time period. So maybe in the first hour, there's a couple, then over the next few hours, there's a couple. And like I was saying before, when you're looking at like queues on doors, you don't want 100 people running through the same door at the same time. It's not going to be effective. Whereas you have 3 people drip into the Primark store, then 3 people then go again, then another 4 people. It's much easier to manage as a business, as a sale, when you've got a bunch of people coming over a longer time period. And that's why protein and carb meals are really, really important. 30 grams of protein is recommended. And then if you can, another added bonus to slow down this, and it would slow it down even further, so maybe 2 of these insulin things come at the same time, is having fiber in that meal. So that's veggies, carbohydrates that are complex in nature that have high fiber. 3 to 5 grams per meal would be amazing if you could do that. And it slows this down, so there's less impact on insulin dumping and less stress on the resistance side here, because there's not 6 of these things pushing against it all of the time to hopefully push their way through the queue. And rule number 3, strength train 3 days a week and build muscle tissue. When I spoke about the need before of the muscle tissue, this is the really key factor, because if you can increase the need and the sensitivity, there is always going to be a demand for what is coming through here to a reasonable doubt. Obviously, you can't give it 1,000,000 calories and expect it to navigate that straight to the muscle. There's a limit, but it's going to be much better if you are insulin resistant or on the verge of insulin resistance to have more muscles demanding stuff on the inside. So when you're strength training and you're building muscle tissue, this means this area here needs more sugars. It needs more energy because you're utilizing the amounts that are in it. So when you end up getting the carbohydrates and using the insulin in here, it can pass through much easier because there is a want and a desire and a need on the other side. So it's more receptive to being sensitive as it being frictionful. It's like if there was a full shop, the security guard's going to be like, no, don't come through the door. We've got people already in. We don't need them anymore. We don't need any more people in the shop. It's too crowded. Now, if the shop empties, then the security guard's going to let more people in. And then that's exactly what it's like when you're strength training. Now, another thing is, the more muscle that you build, the more sugar that you can tolerate. 1 extra pound of muscle tissue can have an extra 13 grams of sugar. That might not seem a lot, but your muscles are quite small and 13 grams is quite a lot. So if you build 5 to 10 to 20 pounds of extra muscle, you're going to increase the amount of tolerance of those carbohydrates or those sugars inside the muscle. So if you do have 200 grams or 150 grams in one go, and you have more muscle tissue, and you use more of it, you are then able to then store more of that for that to then the next time to be utilized. And this is where I see a lot of people go wrong in these 3 areas and 3 rules here. Even if you've got PCOS, if you're just South Asian, you have a higher risk of doing that. All of these areas mean that you still do something about it. You don't label yourself as insulin resistance, you do something about it. You can do these 3 steps and you can make the big changes so that you can let the muscles do the work, you can let the pancreas do less of the work, and you can have less low energy, low mood, and low health by getting those sugars out of that blood sugar into the muscle to use as energy. If you like this video about insulin resistance, then just watch this video here. I think it'll be actually useful for you. It's one of our clients who had insulin resistance, had PCOS, and then she actually got in amazing shape using some of the formulas here, but many, many more in that video revealed.